So what it is that an architect actually does. Believe it or not, it's not such an easy answer, and I think many people, especially in the UK, have troubles with that, which is kind of visible by the fact that when somebody wants to redo their house, build an extension, refurbish it, they go to the builder, not to the architect. And most often what happens is that the builder tells them, hi, listen, you need the plans first, and refers them to 1 or 2 or 3 architects that they know, so that they can get the plans done and potential planning permissions and things like that. So in simple terms, an architect actually helps you with your project from start till its completion, and it's divided into stages, which we'll go into in a second. But I think the most important part is that it's first getting the design in terms of the layouts. It's a thing that most people associate architecture with the most, and then what we as well do, we help you with all of your planning processes and the planning applications that you may have. We will help you again conduct any surveys that may need to be done on the property. We check the local regulations and all of that. We also do the technical design and all of the works required to find out kind of what your building is made of, right? So all of the layers within the walls and things like that, we help you prepare a drawing package to building control. We will help you if needed with party wall agreements and build over agreements. And finally, once it gets to tendering, we will help you choose the contractor, do due diligence checks. We will help you go through that process, as well as finally, we can administer a construction contract between you and the contractor to ensure much more smoother and secure way of conducting construction, all the way until you have a finished house to which you can go inside and just enjoy. Now, let's go a little bit more into detail. Most of the architects work with RIBA Stages. This is a Royal Institute of British Architects. An actual architect would be registered in both RIBA and ARB. Therefore, make sure that whomever you hire has those qualifications. And let's start with RIBA stages from 0 till 7. So the stages are similar across many projects. However, some of the things slightly overlap or happen a little bit differently when we talk about smaller and larger projects. But for what we do in regards to residential projects, we start with stage 0, right? So we have had our initial discussion, you have accepted our quote, and then we start the work together. First thing that we do is the planning framework. It's a document that we send to you where we'll review all of the local planning laws that may be relevant to your property. What it does, it actually helps us design something that has a much higher chance of obtaining planning permission if needed. We would also check if there are any legal issues that would potentially remove permitted development rights from your property. During the stage 0, we would also prepare a construction program that would kind of tell us what's happening when, right? From start to construction. In general, for stages 0 to 3, that means up until planning permission, it takes between 2 to 3 months. Then there's a 2-month waiting period for planning permission. Then we have stage 4, which is technical design, and that really depends. It can be anywhere between 1 to 3 months, depending on the complexity of the project and kind of the quickness in making some of the decisions. However, I would say at least 2 months is usually a good bet. Then we submit everything to building control and go to tendering. So building control takes usually around a month if you go with the application where they kind of check all of your plans up front, which is the safest way to go. And the tendering, I think usually, it takes some time for the contractors to get all of the quotes in place. So it's around a month for getting the quotes and another month for the review of the quotes and negotiations with the chosen contractors until actually signing the contract. In terms of construction, this is where we need an input from the contractor. We can kind of estimate what we think, but it really depends on how big of a team the contractor has, because different contractors can do the same project in different quantity of times. Therefore, together with the quote, we also always ask for how many months do you believe this project will take to complete, right? Because it can differ. And then finally, the project is going into construction phase. So this can vary between, 4 to 8 months in general, between simple and more complex extension projects with home refurbishments. And finally, you can live in your perfectly created new home. So as we mentioned, we start with stage 0, and actually stage 0 and 1 slightly overlap. In the beginning of stage 0, we also do a measured survey. So we ask certified professionals to go and measure your home to a millimeter of accuracy and prepare some existing drawings for us. It is extremely important. We as our company do not take take on clients who do not agree to perform a measured survey, just because it reduces hugely the risk of any miscalculations during the construction, which can actually then cost you much more than what you'd pay for a survey. Therefore, we are not experts on measuring stuff on the site. We don't have the right equipment. This is a surveyor's job to do so. At stage 1, which kind of overlaps with stage 0 on smaller residential projects, we start developing the brief. So we have a lot of conversations with you. So this is kind of, let's say, the initial part where we do the job which you'd expect an architect to actually do. So we go over your routines, how often you entertain people, how big of a table you would need, whether you prefer open plan or closed plans. We go very in detail in terms of, again, your senses. We do encourage you to take this test that would tell us kind of how your senses react to the environment. But in general, we really have a very personalized approach that each of us is different, and the space actually that you'll be living in needs to be the best for you. We also go towards your site. We take many pictures, photographs, and we prepare a preliminary risk assessment in terms of what could affect our timelines, or if there are any risks that we identified at the site as well. If needed, in stage 1, we would also do a feasibility study. It's kind of like this very diagrammatical, quick and easy plans that kind of tell us what we could do with that property. It's when you have kind of no idea which direction you want to go, whether to extend to the side, to the rear, whether to demolish the whole building and build a new one. If you're really unsure in which direction you go, we would do that feasibility study first at stage 1. That would also kind of include our input in terms of what is more or less likely receive planning permission and things like that. Now at stage 2, we actually prepare a set of options, but that are a little bit more detailed, but not fully yet. We mainly work with very simple plans, arrangements, and layouts inside and outside of the property. We would also go towards elevations in terms of, sizes of windows, how you move through the space, but in a fairly diagrammatical way still. However, we work in a way that we prepare many options, right? And you say, okay, I love something from option 1, I hate something from option 2, but something from option 3 also piqued my interest. And then we kind of do this kind of mix and match in a way where we kind of listen to your needs and requirements, and we kind of condense them and prepare another set of options that's a bit more detailed, a bit more tailored towards your needs and requirements. Once we go through that process and we are okay, we're kind of finalizing where all of the walls are, where all of the windows are, and things like that, we go towards stage 3. And at the end of the stage 3, this is where we apply for planning permission, right? So we prepare a bit more detailed set of drawings. We think about materials, especially externally, because internally they can be chosen later, but like things, what color your roof is, what material we use for the roof, what kind of facade treatments do we have, do you want any landscaping work that could potentially affect planning permissions and stuff like that. So we go over all of the materials, colors, and textures for the outside, and we log position of windows and the general scope, how big the build is, and things like that. And finally, we do the design and access statement. That's a document that kind of accompanies all of the drawings that we submit for planning permission. We prepare all of the forms and other required documents. This is also where we do fire risk assessments, especially in London right now. They are required to be done at stage 3 and submitted with your planning application. Once we have all of the documents ready and you have reviewed all of them and you're happy with them, we submit the planning application. We wait 2 months for the result and we start stage 4. While we can start stage 4, while waiting, this happens only when the client is like really, really sure that they'll pass, because there is of course a risk that you'll start paying our fees for production of stage 4 drawings and then you don't receive your planning permission. Therefore, what do we do next, right? So in general, we wait 2 months and we start stage 4. So what is stage 4? Stage 4 is the technical design. This is where we actually design how your building is built. Is it timber frame? Is it blockwork construction? How much insulation goes into the walls? What type of insulation? What kind of membranes? What quality of design you'd like to have your house built? Of course, ensuring that it complies with all of the building regulations, right? We do usually build houses to a higher standard than building regulation kind of tell you to do so, and we do place focus on kind of healthy living, ensuring ensuring, that you won't get moldy walls within a couple of weeks, and that you don't have excessive amounts of moisture inside your home, that your house is acoustically well treated, and things like that. So we prepare all of the technical details, and at the beginning of that stage, we also ask you to hire an engineer. We help you with that, and the engineer prepares structural drawings, so kind of, all of the beams, columns, what are the sizes, their specification, foundation design, and we kind of design everything that goes in between, so all of the facade, all of the materials, membranes, things like that. Within that, we also prepared like basic mechanical, electrical, and plumbing drawings, kind of what's where do we want all of the sockets. We help you with specification of all of the socket switches. We help you with light fixtures. We do window and door schedules to kind of choose certain specific ones already. We do finishes specification, where we specify all of the finishes, paints, floor tiles, whatever it is that you wish of us. We help you with that throughout the whole process. If you choose an interior design package, we usually as well then create bespoke fitted cabinetry in certain rooms wherever you need them, and we compile it into a huge set of documents where everything is listed. It's usually 80 to 100 pages depending on the size of the project, but that actually ensures that when you go and quote with the contractor, you get an actual price for what it is, right? So really, for us, for example, it's a red flag when the contractor says, oh, I'll just quote it from engineering drawings. That means he will give you a much lower price than what it actually is, because they don't know what it is that you actually want to have inside the house. They don't know what materials you'll use and things like that. They count the cheapest possible way to build it because it's based on some engineering drawings, and it's just not the way to go. So once we compile all those documents, we send it to 4 contractors. We choose those contractors with you with due diligence checks, whether the company owners had any previous companies that went bankrupt, what is their financial status, do they have any outstanding taxes to pay. We check all of that on the company's house website to kind of limit the risk. We ask them for phone numbers to their previous clients. If we can talk to them, we try to organize visits to their finished projects. We ask for their portfolio, insurance documentation, and we really do our best to check all of the information to ensure that whomever you choose would actually, complete your project on time and well. Once we receive the quotes back within a month, let's say, we compare them, we contrast them, we do the tables, we talk to you, and you kind of try to narrow down it to 2 contractors with whom you negotiate further quotes and prices. Once you have your tendering documents back, we will negotiate the price with your chosen contractor, see if there is any room to kind of decrease the price wherever you thought it's a bit too high or things like that. We will be able to again compare it. There's always a room for a bit of negotiation at that stage. We will organize, site visits so that each contractor visits your place and you can meet them and talk to them and ensure that whomever you choose is the right fit for you. Then finally, once we have all of the documentation in place, we've sent all of our technical drawings to building control for check. They have been all checked. We ensured potential party wall agreements and build over agreements are in place. We can sign a construction contract, which is usually either JCT, minor works, or intermediate, or RIBA domestic contract. So again, it depends on your project. We always kind of review and advise you accordingly to the size and complexity of your project and your build. And you sign the construction contract. Architects are contract administrators, and they kind of navigate all of the contract particulars. So the contract is between you and the contractor, and whatever changes are being made and you want to kind of happens on site is run through the contract, right? So for example, whenever you want to make a change, it needs to go through the contract administrator. It kind of prevents many conflicts that can arise on site, that everything is simply like well documented and in writing, as well as the contract administrator also does payment certificates. So usually what happens is you pay the contractor a deposit, right? And then every month a contract administrator will prepare a payment certificate only for the things that were done on site, right? So you will not pay for anything that has not yet been accomplished. And so that's one thing, and it's really, really important. When you pay monthly the same amount, you may end up at some point like largely overpaying the contractor for what they have actually done. And if for some reason they go bankrupt or something happens, you have already overpaid for what's actually accomplished on your site, and you're at a huge disadvantage. And also the contracts leave 5% for like the end of construction, so that whatever happens, you hold that 5% until the end and you do not pay it until the project is complete. And once the project is complete, there is some time for snagging and things like that. If you're interested, we can do a much more detailed video on contracts in general. I really hope that video brought you closer to understanding what an architect does and why it is important to hire an architect. I see really more and more often like horror stories of what happens on site, contractors going bankrupt, buildings do not meeting building regulations, people paying so much money to the contractors and then they disappear. So to ensure you live well and healthy, please make sure to hire a good architect for your next project. If you have any question about any of the stages that I just talked about and mentioned, if you want us to explain one of them in more detail, let us know in the comments down below. I would be really grateful if you subscribe to the channel. You know, we do the YouTube thing kind of outside our normal working hours and business hours, so we would really appreciate your support and help here. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.